Hey everyone, and welcome to After Dark Analysis. Today we are going to talk about one of the few certainties in life, aging, and how horror movies portray that by looking at Bubba Ho-Tep and the taking of Deborah Logan. And I'm going to stick completely with the West on this one because I know Asian horror has a very different view on ancestors and how we treat the elderly. So this is a very Western concept. Just wanted to say that before you guys point it out in the comments. We're going to start out with the film The Taking of Deborah Logan. This movie centers around some filmmakers that are going to make a documentary about Alzheimer's. They do this by going to the house of Deborah Logan, obviously, and speaking with her daughter. Her daughter is also going to be a focus of this documentary because they want to show how the stress can hurt the caretaker. Trying to show and prove this affliction hurts way more than just the person suffering it. There also is some grant money tied up in this, but the daughter only intends to use it to help out with healthcare costs. It doesn't seem like she's trying to exploit her mother, because Deborah is very concerned about being mocked and almost tries to get out of it. The girl in charge of this project actually lies to Deborah and says her grandfather has it, so she'll have her utmost sympathy. While it's not a lie that Deborah absolutely has her sympathy, her grandfather did not have Alzheimer's. This was simply a tool to kind of calm her down and keep her from bailing. Now, before we get into this, I think it's important we kind of look over some of the Alzheimer's symptoms. I'm going to put them up on screen right now, and we're going to kind of go through each one. Okay, the first two I'm going to pair together is progressive memory loss and decline in cognitive abilities. Deborah, when she's talking to the film crew, comments that she has quote-unquote senior moments. Something like she's making toast and the toast will pop out of the toast oven because it's done, and she'll push it down to pop it again. While Deborah's minimizing this, her daughter's very quick to point out that she set the kitchen on fire because she got absent-minded with the stove, which I think everybody listening knows how dangerous that could possibly be. The house luckily was okay. They were able to catch it in time, but they're concerned about how bad this is going to get. Not only that, but she has very big memory gaps, which we'll play in later. She also has massive changes in her mood and personality. According to everybody that's spoken to her and knew her before the Alzheimer's took hold, she was a very sweet person. She loved to paint, she loved to garden. She was your quintessential kindly older woman. The film crew records her in several bouts of aggression where she gets mean with people, she yells, she screams, she tries to hurt people, things that just don't fit the personality that was described beforehand. She doesn't seem to show a lot of speech impediments, but she definitely has times where she's searching for a word and you can tell she can't get it, which is problematic and is a symptom of Alzheimer's. These next two are paired together as well, just because the list I got them from puts them very close together, is behavioral problems and sundowning. Behavioral problems, she would try and do tasks like garden, but she'd want to do it at night, which is just an inappropriate time to be out there, especially doing things physically she shouldn't have been doing. The reason they call it sundowning is because these issues seem to be more prevalent in the late afternoon or evening or even night. She constantly is caught on camera doing insane things that make absolutely no sense in the middle of the night. And this is where the memory gaps come in, because she has no notion that she did this or any recollection she did this. At one point, the filmmakers even show her a tape of herself, and you don't see what's on the screen, but she just starts screaming, "That's obscene." It's like, well, you did that last night. You did that in the middle of the night. This is also when the filmmakers start to suspect there's something wrong, because there are movements that she's making that no human, even doing a strange movement, should be able to make, where things will magically disappear and reappear, and she moves in such a weird way that she should be seriously hurt. There's even a point where Deborah throws up what looks like black soil and earthworms. Since she's out in the garden so often at night, it's a chance that she could have either maybe developed a small bout of pica, which is eating objects that aren't meant to be food, or she had a moment and forgot the soil isn't food. Because I could see how you could make that connection of, your food grows in soil, so soil must be okay to eat. It's a weird connection, but somebody with a brain that's not fully there might make it. And about that time is where she starts to get really aggressive and feel like she's being judged, even though everybody around her, including her daughter, just want to help. Impairment of basic motor skills. Again, in the weird movements, she does drop things from time to time, but some of her motor skills are there and some of them are not. Like, she's nailing windows shut at the middle of the night, saying that somebody's stalking her, somebody's trying to come in, which again goes with behavioral problems and sundowning, because it's always at night when she believes these people are coming into her home or attempting to hurt her. While this wasn't on the list, there is some self-mutilation in this film. When they really start to notice her personality shifting is at one point they catch her in the middle of the night, they catch her trying to do something weird, and when confronted about it, she chooses to take her nails and rake them across her neck, slicing open her throat. Clearly being surrounded by her daughter who loves her and these filmmakers that care very deeply for her, she's rushed to the hospital, and that's when they're told that it's very aggressive, where the daughter immediately tells the doctor, it was like, you told me I had 2 to 3 years, maybe more, but now it's in the middle stages. This just goes to show how misunderstood Alzheimer's can be. What ends up being is she's possessed by a demon. And it is the demon of somebody that did something terrible in the town prior. Specifically, a person mysteriously disappeared and was tied to potentially killing a bunch of kids. Deborah's increasingly bizarre behavior leads her to want to recreate an ancient demonic ritual which would make this guy immortal. To do so, she has to collect 5 girls who have just gotten their first period. While Deborah succeeds in abducting and killing 4 girls, her daughter and the filmmaker find her with the last one and are able to save that girl's life. Deborah is deemed unfit to stand trial, though. While the events that happen in The Taking of Deborah Logan are awful and a terrible portrait of what aging can be like, it's still relatively better than our next film, Bubba Ho-Tep. Bubba Ho-Tep centers around 2 main characters, Bruce Campbell, who plays Elvis, and Ossie Davis, who plays JFK. If you're unfamiliar with Ossie Davis's work, he is a formerly very famous black actor. He has passed away since, unfortunately. Elvis's story is that he went and found a really good impersonator because he just wanted to get out of the life after Priscilla left. He just didn't have anything really much going for him and just wanted out, but couldn't think of a way to do it. So what he did is he found a really good impersonator. They signed a contract to switch lives. Elvis took enough money to keep him living okay for the rest of his life, but he also put in a clause to switch back if he ever wanted to. Unfortunately, his copy of the contract was burnt up when his trailer exploded. The Elvis that died was actually an impersonator. When you see that there's a relationship between Elvis and JFK, JFK explains that he was shot, but they were able to fix it. They were able to save his life. Elvis is very quick to point out, well, you're black. That doesn't make any sense. Ossie Davis very quickly quips back that that's how smart they are. They dyed him black. No one's gonna believe it's him. So that's a way that they can keep him safe. Both of these men, unfortunately, live in a retirement home where it becomes very clear and very obvious that they're isolated with no family. They're in a retirement home that's clearly not that great, and they're surrounded by death every single day. Very early into the film, Elvis's roommate dies in a horrible and it looks like very painful coughing fit. While death is never pretty, it's obvious this guy was in agony and was holding his hand out to Elvis. He clearly wanted somebody just to be there. Some kind of human contact to comfort him. And he couldn't even look him in the eye. He couldn't touch him. He died literally right next to him. To show how low these people's lives are considered, when collecting the body, one of the funeral workers contemplates his life and goes, man, like, what would he have done? Wonder what he saw, and all of these things, and his coworker just says, who gives a shit? Eventually, his daughter, Callie, comes to collect his things, and she starts throwing away pictures and his Purple Heart. Elvis stops her and says, hey, can I have that Purple Heart? I know he was really proud of it and maybe one of those pictures to remember him by. Him and his roommate were never close, and he admits that, but he just can't handle the idea of somebody's Purple Heart being thrown away. In bending over to get the Purple Heart out of the garbage can, his daughter Callie reveals her underpants, which Elvis immediately quips, I might as well have been a house cat. She sees me not as a sexual being at all. And he admitted very early in the film, there's an opening monologue about how he has a growth on his penis and how he can no longer get an erection. And how just emasculating that is. He admits at this moment his penis did flutter, which he was surprised it could even do, but then it just went limp again. This feeling of feeling like they're overall useless and less than human even transcends to the residents. There's a woman in the hallway in an iron lung. An old lady walks over to her, strokes her hair. It seems like she's trying to comfort her and bond, to which the other woman's very happy about. Then she steals her glasses, and then she walks over to somebody else's door and steals candy and gifts that were meant for them. She then dies. We see the same two funeral workers return to collect the body, and both of them just comment on how bad she smells. This is done because it's an unsympathetic death. While, yes, it's sad that somebody passed, her being a jerk didn't elicit the same emotion from one of the funeral workers that it had previously. This death brings alarm bells to both Elvis and JFK. They think that something's wrong here. They end up uncovering that there is a mummy hanging out in the retirement home. The reason being is the mummy can suck souls out of people to keep itself alive, and no one's really going to question it because people die in old folks' homes all the time. Though their souls are considered older, meaning they have less juice, meaning the mummy has to constantly feed. When JFK and Elvis go to fight this mummy and make him stop killing their friends, they get this renewed sense of purpose and worth. Elvis gets an erection at one point when the nurse puts the ointment on his growth. Also demands that he do it himself. At one point he's outside, the nurse tries to get him to come back in and he tells her off. At one point he gets out of his bed and flat out says, "No more pissing and crapping in the bed." Meaning it was either he was too immobile to get out and use the bathroom properly, or he was at such a low point he didn't see why it was worth it. In Elvis and JFK's fight against the mummy, they have another friend named Kimosabe, who constantly dresses up in this like almost Lone Ranger mask with toy guns. He has a serious case of dementia, and the mummy does try and get him. Kimosabe fights back because in his head he is this great Western hero and he's gonna go out that way. While he does die, he does not die at the hands of the mummy. His soul is completely intact. He goes to whatever place you believe souls go to. He doesn't end up becoming property of this mummy. Elvis takes the mask off Kimosabe, and this is an important thing, because when they go to do the big boss battle with the mummy, Elvis wears not only the Lone Ranger mask from Kimosabe, he puts the purple heart from his roommate on it, just to show the mummy that he remembers these people. He's gonna fight them in their memory. While both of these men are older, they need walkers, they need assistance, they become much more willing to do things. They become much braver, and their bodies, are worn out, but they can push themselves farther now that they have this renewed sense of purpose. Looking back, Elvis does regret a lot of the way he treats his family, and he does believe the growth on his penis may be cancer, but they're not telling him just because they don't believe it's worth telling him. So while there's no evidence of cancer aside from his suspicion, he chooses if he's gonna go out, he's gonna go out fighting for something he believed in. Just right along with JFK. Both of these men do die at the end of the film, but they do it fighting for what they believed in. And just proving and saving every other resident in that home. Like I said earlier, the taking of Deborah Logan is a slightly nicer and kinder interpretation of aging. While yes, she was losing her mind, and while yes, she had a demonic possession that looked like a very real world disorder that we don't understand a whole lot about, she still had family and friends who loved her and were willing to fight for her. On the other hand, in Bubba Ho-Tep, we see Elvis and JFK just get shoved into the old folks' home, no family whatsoever. This could be because their new identities didn't have a family. I don't know if the Elvis impersonator had a family. He had friends, and we never really get a whole lot of JFK's familial connections after they died in black to try and hide JFK was still alive. They had to make their own family and use their experience and life to bond and build something completely new from the ground up. Which this really exemplifies our whole kind of Western ideal of push people into homes, forget they're there, don't go visit, because we saw that in Bubba Ho-Tep, where the daughter came and said she was too busy, she didn't have enough money. She only came to check him in and then leave. Can you imagine how heartbreaking it would be just to have your friends and family all just disappear? In both instances, though, very real events were being mistaken for just lunacy. In Taking of Deborah Logan, they thought all of the signs of possession were Alzheimer's. In Bubba Ho-Tep, they thought they were demented. They thought they were crazy. And there's some debate about the identity thing. It could have not been Elvis or JFK. But at the same time, the mummy was very real. They killed the bugs that the mummy put out. They killed the mummy itself. Why in the world would you not believe them with all this evidence stacking that they did something? While I understand certain mental deficiencies that come with age you can't play into because that's unhealthy, don't completely brush them off either. Both of these films use the horror lens to explain how horrific it must be to not have people believe you even though there are very real things going on, or at least things that you believe are very real going on. As well as, in some cases, being shoved aside and not being paid attention to as a person anymore because you're past what people feel is acceptable and productive. So once again, we see this horror genre that tends to be viewed as very disposable and very useless and very teen-oriented, talking about a very serious, very real topic that every single human's gonna have to deal with at some point or another, unless you go out very young, which is it's a whole other tragedy. Thank you for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please like, comment, subscribe. If you don't like what you're hearing, please let me know and let me know what you'd like to hear. Thank you.